Hi guys, I'm Dan Dos Santos. Welcome back to WeFightFat. In this video today, I'm going to show you a post-workout stretching and mobility routine I like to do after my Muay Thai sessions. You can do this on its own, so you can do this on days that you don't have hard training, so you don't have to do it after your Muay Thai sessions. But I traditionally do this after my Muay Thai session, so it's a series of stretches and it's a key mobility exercise I also like to make sure I do. Now, when you do things like Muay Thai classes in an MMA gym, they'll usually go through a lot of the stretches I'm going to show today, but I haven't always found them doing some of the mobility work as well. They usually will just do a certain amount of stretches, the most important ones that you need to do, and then they'll be done. Sometimes they do a more extensive stretching routine. It varies from class to class or from gym to gym, but I have a few key moves I like to get done. So if I don't get them done in all done in the session, I like to do them on the same day, or to make sure I do them enough times throughout the week to get in those things I think are important. And so I'll go through why those things are important as I show them, as we go through them. What I'm going to do is just do a light warm up, because like I said, you can do this routine on days that you don't train hard, on days that you just don't have any hard training that day and you want to get in some stretching just to maintain and improve your flexibility, your mobility, things like that. And also just to feel better, so you don't feel as stiff. Maybe you have a few general aches or pains, like just some small things that aren't so bothersome, but they do just make you feel stiff and maybe make you feel a bit lethargic. And so this routine is going to help alleviate some of those things as well. And finally, it's going to help you alleviate the general soreness you get from training as well. So stretching, it has a wide, stretching and mobility work has a wide host of benefits. And so, like I said, you want to definitely do this after you train, and you also want to consider doing it on your lighter training days or even on your active rest days. So I'm just going to do a light warm up here, some arm rotations back, arm rotations forward, some head rotations, and back the other way. And some hip rotations. And this is actually similar to the warm-up I do for my own Muay Thai sessions, which I actually have in another video. And I'll link that in the description box as well. So this is just my general mobility warm-up, just to get me warm and just to make sure my joints are released. And this is just giving you a lighter version to do so that you can do the stretching I'll show you in a minute. Okay, I feel pretty warm now, so you don't really have to do these in a particular order, but I'll go through an order I like to follow. So I like to go from the top down. So starting from the top, I'll do my neck. So when I do my neck, I hold one side of my neck with my opposite hand, and I pull in that direction to my left. So I'll get my left hand, put it on the right side of my head, and pull my head to the left. Just feeling a stretch down my trap and down my the muscles on the back of my neck here that go into my shoulder. So my levator scapulae and my trapezius, I'll be stretching those when I do this. And then I'll do 30 seconds on one side. I'm just doing it a bit shorter here, so you're not just watching me do the full stretch. I'll do 30 seconds on this side, and then I'll actually do a direct stretch for my levator scapula scapulae, so that's the muscle that goes from the back of your ears here all the way down into the top of your shoulders, and that can get really tight and hike your shoulders up and get them feeling tight. So you might get neck pain or a dull headache. This will help with that. And so with this stretch, instead of pulling to the side, you're actually pulling forward, and you're going to look at your foot or your pocket on your opposite side, and then you're going to swap. And again, and don't let your body come over. Make sure you keep your body straight and just pull your head over, feel the light stretch. And don't really pull hard, just pull hard enough so you can feel the stretch. Once I've done my neck, and then I'm going to do the front part of my shoulders and my chest in one stretch, where essentially, like you're praying behind you, you want to bring your hands together and just open up your chest and kind of squeeze your back together and your shoulder blades together, and you'll feel a stretch in the front part of your shoulders and across your chest. So I'm just going to hold this. Again, you want to hold each stretch for at least 30 seconds, and you want to do it for at least 1 round. And I even like to, I know you're interlacing your fingers, I even like to swap them so my other thumb is the other side up, just because I like to do everything even. It's a little bit obsessive, and it might be a little bit excessive in some places. You probably don't have to swap over your fingers, but I just like to even everything out when I do stuff, just for my own peace of mind. But you don't really need to swap over your fingers. You just need to make sure you're holding the stretch again for at least 30 seconds and do 1 round. Okay, so once I've done the front part of my shoulders and my chest, I then start to work down my body. And when I start to work down my body, I start thinking about actually the inside of my thighs. So what I do is I heel toe, which is something you'll hear in yoga. I'll heel toe until I'm in a splits position, which I find challenging. And what I'll do here is, it's a bit different from the other stretches. I'll do 30, instead of just stretching forward, I'll usually stretch to one side and hold that for 30 seconds. And then once I've done 30 seconds on this side, I'll stretch the other side and hold it for 30 seconds. If I'm feeling particularly tight, or if I'm doing this across so many weeks and I'm trying to make it harder, then what I'll do is, when I'm here, I'll heel toe 1 more time or 2 more times to feel the stretch even more, and then do the same 30 seconds on each side evenly. And then I always heel toe back to center, because it's a bit of yoga for the feet. And being, sitting down a lot these days, or wearing stupid shoes or anything like that, you want to make sure the muscles in your feet are getting a good amount of work, help with things like balance and stuff like that. So always use that heel toe method when you're going into a split position. Now, once I've done that's the first stretch for the inside of your thighs, then I'll actually do, I'm just going to get this mat out, but there's a hamstring stretch I want to show you, which I'll show you first. So I'll use this mat in a second. But for the hamstring stretches, there's actually 2 stretches. I'm just going to move this camera so it's pointing towards my door. But the 2 hamstring stretches are going to be these. So the first one, you're going to place your foot on the door like that. Your opposite foot's going to go behind you. You're going to straighten this front leg. Do not let it stay bent. Straighten it and squeeze that front quad. And then you're going to tilt your butt back. Do not let it come underneath you. Tilt it back and then reach. You're going to feel an amazing stretch in your hamstrings. Again, hold it for 30 seconds. And then swap. Put your foot back and do the same thing. Same cues on the other side. Hold it for 30 seconds. And then from here, what I like to do is go back into stretching my calves. So to stretch your calves, put 1 foot behind you. I like to cross this foot over. Not just put it forward, I like to cross it over, feel a deep, even deeper stretch in the calf. Hold this for 30 seconds, and then bring my foot back, my opposite foot back into exactly the same position. Swap over, stretch that for 30 seconds. That's the first hamstring stretch done, and the calf stretch. And now let me just pull the camera back, and I'll show you some of the floor work. So, with the floor work, what I like to do is make sure you have a mat or at least a towel or something. If you don't, just make sure you have a pillow to support where your knees are going to be on the floor. So let me just move this back some more. Make sure it's in the shot. Yeah, it's in the shot. Okay, so the next stretch is another stretch for the inner thighs, and it's essentially you start kneeling like this, put your palms out in front of you, and then put your leg out to the side and push it out straight. Just rolling the mat out here. There you go. Put it out straight until you feel stretch all in there. It's another stretch for the inside of your thighs. I like to do this for at least 30 seconds. And then I'll swap over. And again, I use the pillow so that my knee isn't just constantly against the floor, getting pressure put on it. Because your knee is delicate, so you want to make sure that you're not putting undue stress on it. And I do the same thing on this side for 30 seconds. And then from here, what I'll usually do is, again, use the pillow, swap back over, and do this stretch. And what you want to do here is you're stretching your hip flexor that runs down here. So you're stretching the muscles in the front of your hip here. And to do that, you want to make sure you're upright, not over. You want to make sure you're completely upright. Bring your butt as forward as possible. Squeeze your buttocks together, and you'll feel a stretch all down the front here. Hold for 30 seconds. And then what you want to do from here is cross your foot over as much as you can. And this is the pigeon pose. You'll see this in yoga. You might have seen this stretch a few times. I can't do it completely, but I do it as much as I can do it. So I'll just come back here in case you can't see me on the camera. And then you can move that cushion back to sit into the pigeon pose more. Hold that for 30 seconds. And then swap over, back to the first stretch, the hip flexor stretch. Hold that for 30 seconds on the front of the hip. And then, same thing, cross that leg over into the pigeon pose. And you want to get to the point where you're literally, your whole leg is flat against the floor and your butt's nearly flat against the floor and you're sitting right into this stretch. But just do it as much as you can, kind of thing. Like some people, they keep their leg like almost straight. They don't even bring their foot forward and they sit in it like this. That can be a stretch. And then you want to bring your foot more and more forward until your leg's out in front of you, like that. Almost like your front leg is at a right angle when you're really, really flexible. And then you bring that back. And know that is all the muscles in your legs that get tight from when you do your Muay Thai work. So there we stretched. We started from the top down. We stretch our neck. We stretch the front of our shoulders. All those things get hyped up, so your shoulders might rise over time and get tight up here, so we stretch all of that. Your shoulders might get tight on the front from when you're punching, so we stretch all of that. And then from where your hips are rotating, the muscles on the inside and outside of your hips are going to get really tight. And so we stretch the muscles on the inside with the splits, and with that single stretch, we stretch the muscles on the outside with the pigeon pose at the end. We stretch the muscles on the front of the hip from bringing the legs up, maybe for teeps and maybe for roundhouse kicks. We stretch those muscles with the hip flexor stretch. We obviously stretch our calves and our hamstrings. Just reminding myself, there's one last hamstring stretch I like to do. And so again, you don't have to do this in a particular order, so it doesn't really matter too much that I'm doing this at the end. But for this one, what I want you to do is bend that back leg, allow that put that front leg on its heel, and just allow the toes to come up. And what I want you to do is don't round your back here. Don't allow your lower back to round. Keep a nice straight back and reach. You don't have to touch your toes, just keep a straight back and reach, and you'll feel a different kind of hamstring stretch to that one, but it's going to work, it's going to stretch that hamstring as much, but in a different way. And then just change your feet over and stretch. Again, keep your back straight and almost curve the other way. A lot of times we're taught to try and touch our toes, and that's good to a certain extent, but what's actually much better is lengthening the hamstring as much as possible. And actually, to do that, you need to tilt your pelvis in the right way. So bringing your button, if you do this and you allow your back to round, that's just bringing your butt underneath you, and actually it's just kind of tightening your hamstring in a way. You are going to feel a stretch to a certain extent in your hamstring, but the people who are really flexible that can touch their toes are those that can keep their back as flat as humanly possible, so they're actually tilting their butt out rather than allowing their lower back to round, if that makes sense. So if you forget touching your toes completely and do the stretch I showed you on the door, and this stretch where you keep your back completely flat and you're reaching like that, then you're going to feel it. Like, think about when you're doing things like deadlifts or Romanian deadlifts or stiff-legged deadlifts, stuff like that. Your form is always to keep a flat back and almost let your butt stick out like that. And that's to feel the best stretch in your hamstrings. You don't allow your back to round, right? So it's the same thing when you're doing your actual hamstring stretch. So keep that in mind. The last thing I want to show you here is a mobility move I like to do to fire up the back of the shoulders and the mid-back. So when you do a lot of punching exercises, the front of your shoulders get tight, right? And obviously we're stretching them, but what I like to do is I would like to warm up my shoulders back up a little bit, just to make sure they're warm again. And I actually like to do one of two things. I like to either do some face pulls with a band like this, I'll show you that in a second, or I like to do some band pull-aparts. Whatever I have at my disposal, I'll do whichever one. I prefer the face pull because it allows you to get into a really good position for your shoulders, which is you're starting overhead and you're coming back, like hit this. So this motion is not only going to work the rear part of your shoulders, which is going to counterbalance all of that front shoulder work you get from punching, but also when you punch, your hands are rotating inwards like this. They're rotating over and in. What we want to do is rotate outwards to counteract that and make sure our shoulders are balanced. This is going to help, like I said, with punching. It's going to help your shoulders just feel better. A lot of people who do boxing or do weight training and boxing, they say they sometimes have nagging pains in their shoulders and stuff like that. This is going to help alleviate all of that. So I like to do this. I like to make sure I do at least 1 to 3 sets of this at the end of my workout. And you might think, oh, 1 set, that isn't that much. If you're doing other rear delt work, so other pulling work in your weekly plan, then you might only need to do 1 or 2 sets. If you're not really doing any weight training, then I'd say you should at least do 2 or 3 sets of this. And you can even, if you're going to do your training in blocks, which you should be doing, so that means you start at a certain point, increase over a certain amount of weeks, and then take a deload and start the whole process again and kind of do this fashion like this. If you're doing that, then what I like to do is add sets as the weeks go on. So at the start of a training block, I might do 1 set because I do other pulling work as well. But as the training block goes on, I might do 2 or 3 sets to supplement my other rear delt work, which I do on other days. So I'm just going to show you the face pull version first, and then I'll show you the band pull apart version. So the face pull version is thread this through at the top, and then from here what you want to do is hold it like this. Don't hold it overhand, hold it where the end of the band is on the top of your hand, not the bottom, and pull back and let your thumbs lead, and just pull back nice and wide. Squeeze those shoulder blades together and hold it for a pause. Don't do it fast, and come back and then take a breath in and then breathe out when you come back. And I like to, depending on where I am from my program, at the start of the program I stop about 3 reps from failure, You're just getting some really good, nice, slow and controlled reps. Towards the end of the program, I go more towards failure. That's just in line with my other weight training. And then the other exercise that I do is the band pull apart. And so to do that, this time you're actually going to grab it overhand, start about shoulder width apart, and what you're going to do with this is same thing. You want to retract your shoulder blades to begin with, pull it apart to the sides, and actually use your thumbs to point upwards. That is going to work the external rotators just like the face pull does. I personally don't think it works them as much, but it still works them. So this is better than nothing. So if you're going to a class, you might not be able to do this, right? But you can take a band with you in your bag. They might have bands there. After the class is finished, if they don't do them in the class, what I'd say is if you're kind of already cooled down, do some rotations like this. That will warm your shoulders back up a little bit. Do maybe some arm circles without the band, and then do some band pull aparts. Again, for the sets and reps I already outlined. And if you aren't doing block training, then just do, and you're not doing any weight training, you're just doing Muay Thai training, maybe going to classes, maybe doing it at home, do 2 to 3 sets, and just stop about 2 to 3 reps from failure, and just make sure you're getting in good, clean, slow and controlled reps. It's not a race. It's not about getting loads of reps either. Maybe you just do 5 or like 2 sets of 5, but they're amazing reps. Like you're getting a really good pause in here, you're getting a slow back to center, and you're pulling out, getting that good pause. So make sure you're getting those clean reps in. So that's it. That's the video. It might have been quite a long one, but I wanted to go into the detail of why all these things matter, why you should consider doing them yourselves, and might make time for all of it. Like I said, take a band with you, see if the classes have bands, do the rear delt, upper back work. This is one thing I feel like is lacking from some classes out there. The classes are great, the teachers know way more than I do when it comes to actually Muay Thai itself, but I think in terms of mobility and in terms of your shoulder function, this is a saving grace. Not just in Muay Thai, but in all types of exercise. Your upper back and your rear delts can never really get enough work because everyone wants to do pressing, everyone's going to be doing punching, all of that kind of stuff. So make sure you're giving enough love to your upper back, your rear delts and your external rotators. That will keep your shoulders healthy, and make sure you're stretching because that will make you more mobile, more flexible, and it will help you generate more power and it will keep you healthy. I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more content from WeFightFat. Like, subscribe and share. Thanks guys.